Hey, it's Braids. I'm back for another video in my series, My Favorite Things on the Appalachian Trail. If you're new to my channel and haven't seen any of my other videos before, I thru-hiked the Appalachian Trail in 2020, and I started a series where I go over all of my favorite things on the Appalachian Trail. I've already put out a couple of videos going over my favorite hostels and my favorite views. This video today is going over my favorite food from the Appalachian Trail. As you can see, I've got another fire going behind me. Right now it is the middle of winter and it's been pretty cold, so I felt like a nice cozy fire would be good for this video. Whether you're a thru hiker, a section hiker, or even a day hiker, food I think is like one of the #1 things that hikers think about. So in today's video, I thought I would just share with you, as a thru hiker on the Appalachian Trail, some of the things that were my favorite foods on the trail, in towns, and also share with you some of my favorite restaurants on the Appalachian Trail. So let's get started. As a thru hiker, I ate a lot of food out on the trail. For the most part, every day I had breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks. After a few weeks on the trail and the more I began to hike, the less I wanted to spend a whole lot of time at camp in the morning eating breakfast. So I tried to make my meals as quick as I could, and one of the common staples for me was Carnation instant breakfast. I would have this in either the vanilla flavor or the chocolate flavor, and I had it every morning. I would put protein powder or the peanut butter powder in with the Carnation breakfast to give me additional protein, just to also add some more flavor to my Carnation instant breakfast. And then I always added coffee, and it was the instant coffee packets, and that's what I would have as my beverage in the morning instead of making hot coffee. Now, I love hot coffee, and as much as I would have enjoyed drinking hot coffee on the trail, in the mornings I just wanted to hurry and eat as quick as I could and get to hiking. I would also have some type of a protein bar, or something that would be as high calorie as I could find, but that I could eat pretty quickly. Sometimes it was a Cliff Bar. And if I had a protein bar or a Cliff Bar, I would have peanut butter packets, and I would spread the peanut butter on the bar and eat that as part of my breakfast. A lot of times I carried Pop-Tarts, and I would have Pop-Tarts with the peanut butter sometimes too. I did have oatmeal at times, and I had some like cheese grits and things like that at times, but not for very long into my hike, just because, like I said, I was trying to hurry up and leave camp quickly. So those were the common things I would have for breakfast. For my lunches, it varied quite a bit throughout my hike. I have a tendency to get bored kind of quickly with my food, and I was always wanting to experiment and change it up with different items. But my favorite foods, my common staples that I had for the majority of my hike, was tortillas, because I feel like you can pretty much put a lot of different items in a tortilla. And I will tell you my absolute favorite tortillas, and the only ones that I would buy if it was at all possible, was the old El Paso tortillas. I personally think those are the best tortillas on the trail. They're super soft, softer than any of the other brands, and they're the lightest weight. And they come in packs of 8 instead of 10, so it makes it a little bit lighter. And I found that an 8-pack was completely sufficient, because I would usually carry about 4 days of food. And then in the tortillas, typically I put some type of meat. I was using tuna packets for a while. I really got over tuna pretty fast, but I always pretty much liked the chicken packets you could get, and Walmart had like the best variety of the meat packets. They had the chicken, and you could get them in all kinds of flavors, buffalo, lemon pepper, barbecue, and then also Walmart had pork. They had barbecued pork packets, and I would get those and to put into the tortillas. And then whenever I was in town and if I did go to, let's say, like a fast food restaurant, or I was at a grocery store where they had like mayonnaise packets and little condiments, I would always get those so I could put it in with in the tortilla. And I would put that in there. Sometimes I would put Velveeta cheese, Spam, just peanut butter. I would get the jelly packets and put that in there, but I could just kind of do a whole mix of stuff in those tortillas. And I always usually carry some type of chips, usually Cheetos or Fritos or Doritos, and that was typically the chips I carried. My favorite was Cheetos. They were just super easy to carry. They almost never really got crushed, and I would end up taking some of those and put them on inside the tortilla with whatever I was eating, and so it kind of made it more filling and more like a kind of a crunchy texture to the tortilla, and I just really enjoyed it. The snacks that I usually carried and that were my favorites were gummies. I love gummies. The Nerd, I can't remember exactly what they were called, but I guess they were gummies rolled in Nerds, were my favorite. And I couldn't always get those. I could only usually find those at like a Walmart or some type of grocery store. But when I did find them, I always bought them. And I would have that. Peanut M&Ms, I really did enjoy those. I did later into my hike kind of get to where I didn't want to carry them because they were kind of heavy. And of course I always had chips. I would eat those as part of my snack. And candy bars, some type of candy bars, Snickers, Three Musketeers, I carried those some too. And then, so I ended up carrying a lot of Cliff Bars or some type of protein bar. One of my favorites was the Power Crunch bars. I really liked those. I really loved apricots, dried apricots, but they did give me gas. So I couldn't eat those very often. They ended up making me kind of sick, but I really did enjoy having those as a snack. My dinners were wildly varied. I tried constantly to find something different to carry or something different to eat. One of my main things with what I ate on the trail and what I carried on the trail was how lightweight was it, or how compact was it. So I was always looking for things that I could eat on the trail that didn't weigh too much. So some of my favorites were instant mashed potatoes, stuffing. Stuffing is like a great, very lightweight, very high calorie meal, and you can mix different kinds of the meat packets in that, chicken, tuna, any of those, Spam. And then mac and cheese, and I would actually buy the Velveeta mac and cheese, and what I would do is just take the box, I'd buy the box Velveeta and take the pasta out of the box, put it into a Ziploc freezer bag, and then carry that Velveeta cheese pack, and then that way I can, when I got to camp, I just had boiled water, pour it into the freezer bag, and then once the macaroni was done, I could pour the cheese in, and I love that. That was really good. And for whenever I wanted to treat myself and I was in town and there was an Outfitter or like a Walmart where I could get some of the Mountain House meals, I would get those. And the Mountain House was probably my favorite out of the different brands. And my favorites were the lasagna, the chicken and dumplings, and the biscuits and gravy. Those were my absolute favorites. And I always looked forward to dinner when I had those. But I will say there were a few times through my hike where I chose to cold soak. I did that through the 100-mile wilderness, and then I would just have ramen. I would have the creamy chicken ramen, but I got really over cold soaking pretty quick. But what I did end up doing was later in my hike, as much as like I liked a hot meal at camp, I was hiking bigger miles for myself, and so I was hiking into the night. So by the time I got to camp, I just didn't feel like cooking. So I ended up just trying to carry things where I didn't have to cook anything. So tortillas sort of became kind of a common thing I would have for dinner. And there was actually a few shelters that I stayed at where I was able to order food and have it delivered to the shelter, which I thought was the most amazing thing. The Eckville shelter in Pennsylvania, the 501 shelter in Pennsylvania, and then the RPH shelter in New York were all places you could order different foods. And you could order pizza. And so that was pretty awesome to be able to do that at those shelters. And then there were several times where going through, especially like New York and Pennsylvania, where there's like convenience stores or restaurants along the trail, and I would stop, and a lot of times I would have lunch there and then pick up extra food and take it to camp for dinner that night. And that was a favorite for me. I loved being able to have town food out on the trail. When I was in Maine, there was a place that you could stop at along the trail. It was called Harrison's Pierce Pond Camp. What made it so amazing was the guy that runs the place, he gives you like 12 pancakes, and they're huge. And then you had like eggs and sausage to go with it, and juice and coffee. And let's put it this way, it was so much food that I had my lunch to carry out with me. And it was so good and just such an amazing experience. Some of my other favorite food while I was on the trail was trail magic. That was some of the most epic food that you can get while you're on the trail. It was awesome when I would come across just random coolers full of goodies and drinks, or I would have people stop and give me food on the trail. I loved it when people gave me veggies or fruits, because that was something I just would never normally carry. Even things like different types of bars or candies or things that I don't normally get when I'm in town. that people would give me. It just made the day so awesome. I always look forward to going into town to eat. Even if I wasn't hungry at all on the trail, I was always hungry by the time I got into town. And one of my most favorite things to eat in town was French fries. I never got sick of French fries. I still love French fries. And so any chance I could get to get French fries on the trail, I did. Probably my second favorite thing to get was a burger. I think partially because it was just really easy and common to get burgers out on the trail. Most places always had burger and fries. I did try whenever I could to get some kind of like salad or side salad to go with my food, just to give me some vegetables while I was out on my thru hike. But sometimes that wasn't always easy to do, or it would be like pretty expensive to kind of add a salad. I still sometimes did it. I definitely splurged on my food while I was out on the trail. That was one thing I wanted to do. I mean, there's not very many times in your life that you get to eat whatever you want and still lose weight. And doing a thru hike, at least for me, that was definitely the case. So the skies were the limit, and I ate whatever I felt like eating while I was out on the trail. I also would eat a lot of pizza. I loved Mexican food, I still do. Mexican food was kind of hard to get out on the trail. There was a few towns and a few places where you could get it, but I do remember a few times wishing I could get Mexican food and craving it and it not being available. And I think there was a couple times I got like Chinese food. A few times I got like fish and chips, things like that. Most of the time when I went into town, I was craving savory foods. But sometimes I wanted something sweet. The majority of the time, I wanted ice cream, which is actually pretty unusual considering before the trail, I wasn't much of an ice cream person. But after I did the half-gallon challenge in Pennsylvania, I started craving ice cream all the time. My other go-tos besides ice cream was chocolate cake, which is, of course, one of my favorite desserts ever, and Krispy Kreme donuts. Sometimes I had to settle for other types of donuts, but Krispy Kreme donuts was what I always craved on the trail. And I was very fortunate enough to have my friend Angela bring me out some Krispy Kreme donuts at Max Patch, which was pretty awesome. When I was on the trail, I mainly drank water or flavored water. But when I got off trail, I always wanted a Diet Coke. Diet Cokes were always my go-to. I always craved them. I never got tired of them. One place that I loved in particular was in Front Royal, Virginia, and the restaurant is called Spelunkers. It actually looks like a chain restaurant. It's kind of fast food style, but it's not a chain. They only have the one location, but the food was so good. It's just burgers and fries. They may have had other stuff, but that's really all I ate was burger, fries, and ice cream. And it was so good. I had the best French fries ever. I loved it, but even the burgers were so good. In fact, my husband and he came out to see me at that point in Virginia, and we ate there like 3 or 4 times. It was so good. We loved it. Another favorite restaurant for me is the High Test Deli. It's in Bryson City, North Carolina. It has one of the best Philly steaks I'd ever eaten on the trail. The only other place that compares, which has just as good of a Philly steak, was the Lake House Tavern, which is in Monson, Maine. But both places had amazing Philly steak cheese. The French fries were amazing. Yeah, just super great food. Another favorite place was the Woodstock Inn Brewery. It's located in North Woodstock, New Hampshire. I only actually had breakfast there, but it was such a good breakfast. I mean, they give you like this whole spread of food. They even served these like cinnamon rolls covered with nuts. It was so good. It kind of comes with your meal. You get orange juice or your choice of juice, and oh my gosh, it was just such an amazing spread. And honestly, I didn't think it was that bad price for the amount of food you were getting. The Smoky Mountain Diner that's located in Hot Springs, North Carolina is another like have to stop at on the trail. It's right on the trail. My husband, when he picked me up in Hot Springs right before I got off the trail because of COVID, we ate there a few times and it was so good. And one time we had this like grilled pimento cheese sandwich with like sweet potato fries and this like creamy tomato soup, and it was heaven. Another favorite place on the trail is called Vinney's Deli. It's located in Paulding, New York. It's actually been featured on the Food Network, but I got a veggie wrap there, and it was the best veggie wrap I've ever had in my life. It was so good, and I was really craving vegetables at the time I ate it, and it was so good. Another restaurant that I'm gonna mention, just because I think it's kind of funny what I ate there, it's called Hawg Barbecue. It's located in Gorham, New Hampshire. So you're thinking barbecue, right? I didn't have barbecue. I actually got their fried chicken. I'm not a big barbecue person. But it was the best fried chicken ever. It was so crispy and flavorful and juicy. And oh my gosh, I was like, I can't believe a barbecue place has this amazing of chicken. So I had to mention them. And then the last restaurant that we're gonna mention is called the Apple Pie Bakery. It's located in Delaware Water Gap, Pennsylvania. It's just so awesome. There's so many like baked goods in the store. I actually got the chicken pot pie, it was so good. But the really cool part, if you're a through hiker or a long section hiker, and you're going through that town, you can get a hot dog and a slice of apple pie for $2.95, and it is so worth it, and it is so good. Yeah. Out on the trail, one of the things that I did with all of the food that I would buy for resupply is that I repackaged everything, and I would put it into Ziploc freezer bags. I actually almost never bought the Ziploc brand. I usually bought the store brand. They were just as good. I do recommend to buy the actual zipper ones, not the ones with the zipper handle that opens and closes, but the ones where you have to kind of squeeze it to close. And I say that because when sometimes I would buy the little zipper handled ones, and they would open up. They wouldn't zip closed, and so they have a tendency to leak. So definitely buy the ones that close, that you have to press to close. And by putting it in a freezer bag, you can put boiling water in there and cook your food in it. But by repackaging the food, it actually made the food a lot smaller in my pack, in my food bag, and it made it lighter. And it's funny because I did see a lot of hikers on the trail that like just took the packaged food like in their boxes and packages like out on the trail. And I just think it's worth it. I mean, you pay about $3 for a box of the Ziploc bags, and really you get enough that you could probably carry the extras for your next resupply or share it with other hikers. But I think it's totally worth it, just because, like I said, I mean, I think that's one of the things hikers are conscientious about, is how much weight they're carrying. And it's not something you think about when you're not hiking, but on the trail, food weighs so much, and it's amazing how quickly it adds up. And it also just made it easier for cleanup and everything else, because that way my cup that I used to boil my water in, that's all that was ever in it, was just the water. I never had food in it. One of the tips that I have for anyone wanting to do a long distance hike is don't go out on the trail and make that the time that you decide to do a new diet or think you need to try to be really conscientious about healthy eating. It's going to be super difficult. The one thing is, when you're out there doing a long distance hike and you're hiking every day for hundreds of miles, you're going to burn a ton of calories, and your body needs a ton of calories. So at this point, it's just, I think personally, better just to go out there and listen to your body, eat what you crave, don't be afraid to eat. And if you can get in some healthier options, that's fine. But remember, what's most important is getting in those calories. All right, so that's it for my favorite food on the Appalachian Trail. I do have some trail recipes that I want to share with you guys, but I'm going to save that for another separate video. Let me know in the comments if you like this series that I'm doing with my favorite things on the AT. I definitely still have several more videos that I'd like to put out in this same topic, but I'd like to know from you all if this is something you enjoy. Do you like this? Do you want to see more of these? And if you have any questions for me, just let me know in the comments below. Wow, that is a big fire. Oh my gosh. All right, well, that ends it for this video. Thank you guys for being here, for watching, and for all your support. My fireplace is freaking me out. I don't know what it's doing. Until the next time, happy hiking.